One of the things about anti-racism, certainly in Britain, is that it's avoided any kind of grand theorizing. I think for good reasons. It's recognised racism is so complex that if you try and reduce it to a particular kind of simplistic theory, racism is always going to outgrow you. It's too difficult to capture. But CRT had this range of ideas and concepts that just immediately connected with what I understood as an anti-racist, but then, as I say, pushed me to ask new questions. So I immediately started reading around the area, talking with some of the key people that had introduced CRT into education, some of the main US scholars, and started applying it to the UK. So I think I gave one of the first, possibly the first ever presentation of critical race theory at the British Educational Research Association. And it went down absolutely brilliantly insofar as nobody asked a single question. And the room clearly wanted me to get out of there and shut up as much as possible. So from that moment on, I was hooked. It's completely revolutionized what I do. I think it's made me a much better scholar, researcher, and a better anti-racist.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like there's always been a bit of resistance when people first hear the ideas of critical race theory. I remember when I was first researching critical race theory, it was often used in the US, and then I came across one of your articles that looked at critical race theory and actually called out white supremacy. So your piece on education policy as an act of white supremacy, whiteness, critical race theory, and education reform. And I was so excited because it was the first time I'd ever seen a piece of academic research that looked at the British education system. Well, yeah. Scotland still doesn't have that much about it. We're trying to develop it.
It's really interesting just to hear. And even you were describing that as your presentation ended, it came to Q&A and they were sinking further into their seats. And it's that sense of uncomfortableness, isn't it? It's almost like holding up a mirror, but somebody refusing to look into it. Yeah. It's about look at this carefully. It's not seeing nature again that you often write about. And for me, it's always been. It's interesting to think about it, David, as a white man yourself, talking about critical race theory, and then in my day-to-day work in academia, I work with student teachers, I work with early years practitioners, and I'm trying to hold up that mirror. I'm trying to find ways that I worry about them feeling uncomfortable, and often then put myself last to think as a person of colour. To engage them in a lecture or a workshop around whiteness and white privilege, it seems very comfortable to talk about the colour of my skin and talk about how are you going to respond to the diversity in your classrooms, and which is the stance I took initially. But as I progressed with my own doctoral studies and started to explore critical race theory as a framework to help me analyse my findings, I've become more braver and perhaps maybe more cocky, I would imagine, about using CRT and premising the whole whiteness and white privilege. But again, worrying about the moment I talk about whiteness, it's that instinctive, well, you're talking about my skin colour, and students have come back and said, well, I don't have an ethnicity. So that was really interesting.